So the groups for DreamHack Open Stockholm have been released, and this is, of course, to see who is going to make it to the next major, being co-hosted by DreamHack and PGL in Romania. And basically, we have four groups of four teams, and out of each group, two teams will advance to the actual major. And so basically, I wanted to just do a video to talk about the groups really quick, mostly with the North American team emphasis, since there are four North American teams going to be competing in this qualifier. So I wanted to kind of touch on them, probably a bit more than I touched on other teams, but I'm going to go over them all. And I mostly put this video together just because I just wanted to make something, and this is my best shot at making a vlog that was under 30 minutes. So I'm going to give it a shot here, and we'll just talk to the groups and go from there. So first off, I just want to say thank God for this format. It is a best-of-3 GSL group stage system. Holy shit, thank you for finally giving us some best-of-3s world in which to enjoy Counter-Strike on, and this can only lead me to believe that the actual major itself will also feature some type of best-of-3 system in the group stages, or at least one would hope, if they're willing to go to that length, and the qualifier, that the actual main event itself will follow the same suit. So we might finally have a Valve major, we might finally have a big money event with, you know, $250,000 on the line or whatever it may be, finally featuring a proper format to make sure we have good competitive integrity, in the sense of having a format that generates the best level of competition and doesn't leave a team traveling all the way across the world for $250,000 to just go home after playing two maps. So first off, I just want to throw that out there. Thank you, DreamHack. Thank you, PGL. Thank you, all these, whoever it is responsible for this. Finally, we have it at a major, at least at the major qualifier. So cool stuff. So we'll just take it group by group here. We're going to start off with Group A, which features Cloud9, Immunity, MIXCAT, and Dignitas. So to start off with, we got Cloud9, right? And of course, they made a huge name for themselves when they got this five together with Freakazoid and Skadoodle. They started off rough, but then they had that crazy, run of second place finishes between, the ESL, ESEA Season 1 Pro League finals. I think one of the Faceit events they played in, and then, of course, at ESWC 2015. Then they had a top four finish at the cbble Season 7 finals, losing in the semis to Virtus Pro in a pretty close series, almost making that comeback on Inferno. Since then, however, they have now been eliminated from Cologne in the group, so once again, Skadoodle denied a chance to get out of groups at a major, unfortunate for him. And basically this was based on being able to beat Mouse Sports on Overpass, which was a good win because they had lost to Mouse at the cbble Season 7 finals. And it seems like Sean has a knack for getting revenge on teams that beat him. The only exception would be like Virtus Pro, I guess, at least in recent times. And then we see them losing the Virtus Pro on Kabul, but then they had to play the decider now against Kingwin on Dust 2, and they lose it, I think it was 13-16 or something like that, having a lead going into the second half, but couldn't close out the game until they get eliminated there, and that was certainly disappointing. And then they went on to the Dubai Invitational, where again they lose to Envy here, this time on Kabul, and then they have to play against NIP for the elimination match, and again they get beat on Dust 2. This time it goes to overtime, but again it's a similar situation where at one point they had a big lead, they allowed NIP to come back into the game and put it into overtime, and then that's where they lost it. So a lot of people are now up in arms. Cloud9, this is doomsday for them. All is lost. All hope is gone. Everything that Cloud9 accomplished has been erased, and everyone just thinks they're disappointing and things like that. To which I would say they lost some best of ones to some teams and got eliminated for some big events. And while the major certainly is disappointing, and anytime you go to an event that has a lot of prize money on the line and you're considered one of the world's best teams now, like probably somewhere in the top 5 or something like that, though I think with Envy kind of increasing their stock, maybe Cloud9 will drop down, but certainly a top 10 team in the world. Obviously, it's disappointing to have these types of things happen, but I think they're still a good team. I think that the same building blocks they had in place to be successful with all these second-place finishes, Sean Gares' leadership and the different aspects of that, Shroud being still an effective star in a more aggressive rifling position, obviously Skadoodle being one of the best ops in the world, Freak being the dedicated entry, having the roles established, Nothing having some of his better form throughout his entire CSGO career. I think all these things are still in place. It's funny because the main thing that's been killing Cloud9 is Dust 2 CT side. When you look at when they lost to Mouse Sports in groups at the CBO Season 7 finals, which is what caused them to have to play Virtus Pro in one of the semifinal matches instead of playing Navi, which you could debate which matchup would have been better. But, losing to Mouse Sports in the groups, part of that, as well as how they lost to Kingwin to get eliminated from Cologne and how they lost to NIP to get eliminated from Dubai. In all three of these scenarios, it has been because their CT side Dust 2 has slacked. And also, on top of that, having a lead, not being able to close out the game. And on all three occasions, it was, in fact, trying to close out the game from the CT side of Dust 2. In all of these cases, they had at least 9 rounds on Terrorist side on Dust 2, which is fine. They had 9 rounds against Kingwin at Cologne. They had 9 rounds against NIP at Dubai. They had 10 rounds against Mouse Sports at the CBO Season 7 finals. And in all these cases, once they flipped to the CT side, it just didn't work out for them. And part of this was things that were kind of out of their control in the sense that there were some kind of moments where Skadoodle, who usually is a very, trusty op to get things done, had some situations where he was kind of missing some key shots on people crossing the cat. This was especially prevalent in Dubai when Nip just kept abusing the catwalk and just getting into the A-bomb site and kind of crushing them there. So that's something that you can't really account for in the sense that usually Skadoodle is going to be able to play that pretty well. And you should be able to handle that pretty well. But I think some of the other problems is not Freak as a player, but just his positioning. He's either Goose or he's in CT spawn every single time. And they keep pretty much the same setup, at least on the A side of the map. They might double up long and put some pressure there and try to hold it for a while and things of that nature. But I hardly ever see them do aggressive cat setups, except for maybe Skadoodle getting aggressive on cat and getting boosted with the op to pick lower B, or to just go single-handedly up cat to maybe take a pick at right side mid, or like green box from 1.6, what people call it, or the subway or suicide, whatever you want to call it, over towards T spawn. But you never see them like double up rifles on cat. You very rarely see them put aggression on the B tunnels. It's a lot of the time what winds up happening is the mid to B on their CT defense gets abused a lot, just simply because you kind of see Sean Gares and Nothing kind of play inside the site together at B, which is good. At least they're not splitting Nothing and Sean Gares up, one to cover B and one to cover mid alone, with Freakazoid always being kind of cut off by smokes. And now people are used to him getting on top the double stack box there in the corner, so they like molly him out or nade him out, and so he always gets put out of position or is isolated from his team. And you can just see the struggles there. So if it seems like they need to, I know it sounds so simple that if they could just fix their CT side Dust 2, they'd be fine. But in reality, some of the ways I've gotten eliminated lately in 2 different tournaments, the 2 different 250K tournaments they've been at over the past few weeks, as well as, even going back to CBO against Mouse Sports, has been actually the CT side Dust 2. And I'm not going to go any further than that. That's just one thing that could be fixed. Like I said, I think the building blocks are still in place, and they should be able to make it out of this group, and they should be at the next major. And I'll just leave it like that. Now you have Immunity in this group. They managed a good game in Cologne, actually, against Kingwin on Dust 2, but they still lost, and they also lost to VP pretty big on Kabul. Aside from that, they were at the Gfinity Spring Masters 2 event. I think that was their last real land since Cologne, and they didn't really do much. I think the only thing they really accomplished was pushing Titan into overtime on Mirage, but they still wound up losing that game. This also all includes a head-to-head loss against Cloud9, which I think it's the same 5 for both teams if they in fact go head-to-head in this group, which they don't go head-to-head at first. Immunity would have to be Dignitas to play Cloud9. Which I don't see that happening. But if they do, in fact, somehow match up against Cloud9 head-to-head, Cloud9 has, the big head-to-head result over them at the Gfinity event. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much to say about Immunity. They've been regarded as the second-best Australian team behind Renegades, I suppose. They've been to a couple of lands overseas in Europe. They have some players that can hit some nice shots and such, but they don't really have any great results under their belts at all. They pretty much have gotten steamrolled in most of their games. When you look at VP at Cologne or VP, Envy, and Cloud9 at Gfinity Spring Masters 2, they've only managed, out of maybe 8 or 10 mats played, they've only managed to break into double digits, I think, once or twice. So they're just not up to par yet with the elite teams or the top teams in the world. So I can't really see them doing much in this group, unfortunately, since Dignitas is one of the other teams in it, which I think has a much better chance to advance next to Cloud9. And there's MIXCAT, this Finnish team. I'll be honest, I don't know anything about this team other than everyone talking about Joel's finally playing on LAN or something. I don't even really know much about him. So, have to excuse me for not having the knowledge here. But they beat Reason and SK to make it to the offline qualifier. Other than that, I don't know anything about them. I don't suspect much out of them. But then again, since I am ignorant to who they really are and what they're capable of, maybe I'll be shocked. But I'll just mention their team name. But I don't know much about them, and I can't see them doing much. Now we look over at Dignitas, kind of regarded as the second best Danish team behind TSM. They had that youthful talent in AZ and Caribby. If I'm pronouncing Caribby right, I might not be, but I obviously have seen him play. I know who he is. Their last LAN was at the Acer Predator Masters, where they lost to Hellraisers in that event, but they did have a win over Penta. When they were trying to qualify for Cologne, they got beat out by King One and Flipside Tactics and didn't make it to the last major. It's also worth noting that the Gfinity Summer Masters 1 event is where they really kind of showed some potential, though, having some good maps against Titan, Envy, and NIP, and they actually beat Titan in the best of 3 at this event. And like I said, they've always had this youthful talent with KRB and AZ. They have Pimp, who's this guy with just an incredible heart who can be a good player. MSL came in as a leader to replace Fetish pretty early on, and the results have been better since then. They've looked like a better team in general, so he's had an impact there. And the big story is that they recently picked up Schneider for Nico after things happened over at Cologne. And since they picked up Schneider, I think they've played a few online games here or there, but I haven't seen them play a LAN with Schneider. So we'll see what this team has up their sleeve, but I certainly think it should be enough to get past teams like Immunity and MIXCAT to actually make it to the major. And so they'll actually get tested, and we'll see what they're really made of. But at least we'll get to see them probably play against Cloud9, because Cloud9 plays against MIXCAT first. I assume they'll win that, and then Dignitas plays Immunity, which I assume Dignitas will win. So we'll get to see Dig and C9 play head-to-head in the upper bracket final of this group to determine who gets out first. It's first slot at the major. I'm not sure who would win between Dig and Cloud9. I would probably pick Cloud9 for now, but Dignitas certainly has a lot of talent, and they just picked up a great player in Schneider, so it's certainly not going to be a breeze for Cloud9. I mean, despite who wins the upper bracket, either MIXCAT or Immunity will win the lower bracket, and I'm sure whether it's like a rematch or something between Cloud9 and MIXCAT, or a rematch between Dignitas and Immunity, if whoever loses the upper bracket final, or just whatever match that winds up happening there, I'm sure it's still going to be Dignitas and Cloud9 coming out. I'm just not sure what order, and I'll just leave the Group A like that. So now we move on to Group B, which I think is probably the most straightforward group out of all of them, in my opinion, though I think Group A is also pretty straightforward, but Group B I think is even easier. With Hellraisers coming in, Simple is going to be standing in. I remember Hellraisers made a big name for themselves by beating teams like TSM, mouz Sports, and Dignitas to win the Acer Predator Masters event. They didn't make it to Cologne, however. They didn't make it through the qualification process there. Now they have Simple standing in, who, left Flipside Tactics after ESWC and was kind of playing on some random teams. But now he's going to be coming in for Dogia, who has stepped down from the team. And so now you're going to have Simple and Mo. I'm sure Simple might just rifle more with Mo still opping. You still got the regulars over there on Hellraisers. And this is a team that's always pulled best-of-1 upsets in group stages at different events in time. And they're known for having a lot of skill and being a team that can get these map wins here and there, but never good at winning a series, especially against an elite-level team. But the only competition they really have in this group is going to be Titan, the other two teams being eBettle and Skyred. So I assume Hellraisers should be able to make it out this group. Whether they make it first or second, I would think second. I think Titan would beat them in the upper bracket final of this group. As we talk about Titan, they did lose to Navi and Renegades at Cologne. They, however, did beat mouz and VP at Gaming Paradise, but lost to King One ultimately. But not a lot of people are giving a whole lot of credence to anything that came out of Gaming Paradise because of how shit the event was overall. So I don't know what that really means, if these results are something we can hold on to as credible or not. Regardless, when they played at Dubai, the most recent event that they've played at since they, lost Kenny S and Apex and picked up Shocks in the mix, as well as Smiths. They had 3 map losses to Fnatic, One of them was pretty close on Inferno, actually, but then they had some big losses on Cobble and Train, and they lost to Navi on Cobble as well. So didn't really get any good map results out of that event. All their maps they played there were all losses. But they're playing up against good teams in Navi and Fnatic. Here, their only competition is really going to be Hellraisers. So I think Existence will finally make his return to a major here with Titan. Will they make it out of the group stages once they get to the next major is another question altogether. Certainly, they still have the tactical mind with Existence. They certainly have great talent in Shocks. We've seen Maniac and RPK step up in recent times. So I think this is going to be an interesting team. They always get the short end of the stick because Envy's always getting the most talent in that French scene lately. And they're always going on to be like a top 3 team in the world, whereas Titan is kind of struggling to stay in the top 10. But here, they should have no problem getting out of Group B. The other 2 teams in Group B are eBettle and Skyred. If I'm honest, I don't really know anything about these 2 teams other than what eBettle did at Cologne, where they lost to CLG and Fnatic, both on Mirage. And so they didn't really do anything there. And I think most people were kind of saying they were lucky to even make it to the last major in the first place. I don't see them getting to it this time around with Hellraisers and Titan on board. And when it comes to Skyred, no clue at all whatsoever about that team. Don't suspect they'll be able to beat Titan. That's their initial matchup. They'd be eBettle playing Hellraisers. So, obviously it'll be Titan and Hellraisers in the upper bracket final. I think Titan will win that, but then Hellraisers will either win their rematch against eBettle or beat Skyred to move on second out of Group B. Now we move on to Group C, which this group to me is the most interesting one, the one that has the most potential to be exciting, basically, on who is actually going to be able to make it out. Now, first off, you have Renegades in the group, and this is, of course, regarded as the top-level Australian team. We did see him at the last major at Cologne. They lost to TSM pretty close on Train, so they gave them a good game. They beat Titan on Mirage. They had a good map win there, but then they lost pretty bad to Nip on Inferno to be eliminated from the event. We saw them at Gamescom recently as well. They did have a map win over SK on Mirage, but they didn't get any other map wins besides that, though they did manage a close loss on Train to TSM another time. So I guess 2 close losses to TSM on Train, 2 events in a row. So playing some decent games, but no really crazy big results. At ESWC, they did manage to beat CLG on Cash, which is one of the ways that CLG got eliminated in group play from that event, though they did later lose on to the eventual champions Navi in a best-of-3 once they got to the playoffs of that event. Renegades, though, still known as a pretty decent team, a team that can certainly give a team like Liquid a run for their money in this group, as well as maybe even being able to challenge Mouse Sports. So Renegades is definitely one of the contenders to come out of this group. Now you have Mouse Sports next. After Cologne, where they lost to Cloud9, flip side, and were eliminated, they did drop Speedy, and then they picked up back Nico, which Nico never left the team. He was just like a sub, but still under contract, whatever that was. But now Nico's back to the starting lineup. Since doing so, the only event they played in was Gaming Paradise, which again was an event that not a lot of people are giving a whole lot of mind to. And at that event, though, they did get beat by Titan pretty badly. Managed a close game against Navi on Cobble in a map, 13-16 game. But other than that, they didn't do so hot. But again, not many people are giving a whole lot of thought to what happened at Gaming Paradise. That's the only event they've played at since they've picked Nico back up. We know Nico can be a great talent. They still do have some talented players in Nex and Chris J as well that have at times really shown some great stuff. Though Nex did look a bit off at Cologne, if we're honest about it, and the whole team really didn't look as sharp as normal. Like when you compare to how they were playing at the CVO finals and some of the different Gfinity events where they were pulling some nice map wins, they didn't look near that form at Cologne. But again, they're a huge contender to come out of this group. In fact, I think they're probably the favorite to come out of the group first. It all depends, though, on how Liquid transitions to the LAN environment from their recent online play. So let's talk about Liquid a bit. This is the next team on the list here in this group. They really turned the corner just this last week, basically. When they first picked up Hiko, they were still kind of going through their growing pains, and obviously Liquid had been struggling a lot before that between what happened at CVO and the Cologne qualifiers and ESWC and some of these other events they played in, like Face It and such overseas, where they're just getting like crushed by Nip and Fnatic, not even looking competitive. not being able to do anything against their NA rivals at CLG or Cloud9 to pull upsets there either. And some of those different events they played against those teams at. So things are just looking kind of rough. But here at PGL, which was like an online event where they were one North American slot was up for grabs and what should be, I think it's a 4-team LAN where they'll be playing against, what is it, like TSM, Fnatic, and Envious, I think it is. I'm not 100% sure on what the 3 European teams were for it. But they did best CLG in a BO5, beating CLG on Mirage, which is a map that they're really well known on, with also some wins over Dust 2 and Overpass. So they did drop Cash and Train the series, but Cash is certainly a good map for CLG as well, so kind of understandable. But the point is they beat CLG, and this is after CLG had beaten them earlier in the PGL tournament, plus CLG had these head-to-head victories against Liquid at CVO Season 7 Finals and the Cologne qualifiers in Burbank when they moved on to the major and Liquid did not. Granted, different, didn't have Hiko, had Flowsick at the time. But this is like Liquid making progress in the sense they're now beating CLG, a team that had given them a lot of trouble in the past, especially on LAN and even online, and now they have a win over them. They also went on to beat Luminosity to I guess, win the NA qualifier to go to LAN. They actually technically beat Luminosity 3-1. It was just Luminosity having a 1-map advantage in this best of 5 because they were the upper bracket team. But in reality, they only played 4 maps, and Liquid won it 3-1. They dropped Overpass in double overtime, but then they went on to just absolutely dominate Luminosity on Cobble, Cash, and Mirage, all not even allowing Luminosity in the double digits. So really, really impressive result there. Then they go on to the iBuyPowerfall Invitational event. They handle 3s up, no problem, in the quarterfinals. They go on to the semifinals. They play CLG head-to-head again, win again, 2-0 this time on Cobble and Overpass. Games were pretty, I guess Cobble was pretty one-sided for Liquid. Overpass was quite close, but still a victory for Liquid nonetheless. And they go on to the grand final playing against Luminosity for the $9,000 at this event. And they lose Inferno in double overtime, which that was the first time Liquid had played Inferno with the 5 they have, and they historically weren't even that good on Inferno anyway. So being able to challenge Luminosity on Inferno was good, but ultimately lose. But then they just blast Luminosity on Cash, which Luminosity isn't a good Cash team really anyway, and Liquid, that's proven to be probably their best map right now. They've looked really dominant on Cash lately. And then they win another close Mirage game. So being Luminosity and CLG on Mirage between these two events, so that's a huge improvement because Mirage was also usually a pretty poor map for Liquid in the past. So they seem to really be turning things around is the point I'm trying to make. They have Nitro back in an entry fragging position. His form has looked really good lately. Elige is secondary entry fragger, still could be first man out sometimes, but definitely still, one of the first people into sites, and his form has looked really good lately. Hiko on the team, he's looked good as you expect. He's not on the main lurking role. That's kind of Fugly's job, but he's still one of the extremity players, but he is a bit more involved in executes nowadays. Also still one of kind of the side anchors for the team as well on TT side, and he obviously adds a lot of experience and talent to the team, especially when it comes to late round situations and clutches. And then you have Adren, still in-game leading, still opping, which I know he's had struggles doing both in the past, but apparently he's getting some more help from some of his teammates when it comes to mid-round leadership on T side to free him up a bit more to just focus on opping, as well as also having GB James and D-Mode as coaches to kind of maybe help a little bit from behind the team, while Adren focuses a bit more on looking for picks with the op, I guess. Regardless, everyone has looked better. I mean, I guess Hiko has never looked bad, but Adren's looked better online lately. Nitro and Elige are looking in top form. Fugly's always been pretty consistent, if we're honest. The big question will be, they've looked hot lately online, but are they going to bring it to LAN? I mean, come on, time and time again, we've heard these storylines about how sick these teams look in practice or how sick these teams look in online tournament play. Then they show up to LAN and they take a huge, massive shit everywhere and just don't do anything. And if we're 100% honest about it, there's been several times throughout Nitro and Elige's career where they've looked really hot online, and then whenever they are really needed for their team in a big LAN match, like against Cloud9 at ESWC 2015, like against CLG at CVO Season 7 Finals or at the Cologne qualifiers, Nitro and Elige are pretty quiet in comparison to how they look in other matches between online play or whenever they play against like really weak teams on LAN, like what happened I believe it was on train against LDLC White or against that KU team that was playing that they played. I think they played them on Inferno in the groups at ESWC. The Legion Nitro will freaking smash against weaker teams on LAN. So it's not like they're only online players or something like that. But once they have to really step up against a big matchup against like a top team that can give Liquids a challenge, that's where they seem to really fall short. Because here's the deal: Fugly always is fairly consistent. He's always putting up good numbers. Duran, yeah, he's going to be hit or miss, but he's the in-game leader, so that's his most important job. We should expect Hiko to play just as well as he was playing when he was standing in for Flipside at ESWC, as well as how well he played throughout his entire history with teams like Cloud9, Quantic, Complexity, Area 51. He's always been a really solid player, especially in the LAN environment. So really, it's up to Nitro and Elise. These are the two guys we need to look out for to see if they're really going to bring it this time on LAN. Now, their competition is going to be teams like mousesports and like Renegades, which mousesports certainly aren't going to be any slouch. mousesports beat Liquid at the CEVO finals with a lesser skilled team, if we're honest, since we think Nico is going to be a better player than Speedy in the long run for this team. And so that's something Liquid has to think about here. And then Renegades, they're a pretty solid team. I'm pretty sure they beat Liquid at one of the Gfinity events. Or Face It or something like that not too long ago, but of course when Liquid still had Flowsick. So, I mean, these are teams that have given Liquid trouble in the past. This will be a good test for Liquid on LAN to see what they actually have. Also, since we think that CLG and Cloud9 should advance, I guess we haven't talked about CLG yet, this could be, North America's opportunity to have 3 teams represent the country or the region for the first time in a Valve major. We've only ever had 2 teams before this, so we'll see. I mean, let's see if Liquid can bring it. And then next up is going to be Mythic, which is a team that has looked a little bit better recently online lately. I mean, they beat out Conquest after all to make it to this offline qualifier, which is a pretty good upset result. I think they recently beat Complexity in a series for the CEVO Pro League. So some of their online results are starting to look a little bit better. I mean, they have Pitt, who has proven to individually play quite well for them, even when they were having some struggles at ESWC 2015, some of these other CEVO events. Pitt's always individually looked pretty good for them as one of their more aggressive riflers. It's really been Anger, who's been super hit or miss, and that's been like that all year long, it seems, between when he was playing with Denial and now with this lineup. He's been just super hit or miss. He has a high skill setting, has great aim, but it just depends on whether or not he's going to show up or not. And then Devilwalk comes to the team. I think he adds a lot to the team mentally, as well as maybe even being kind of like a partial coach/player. But his individual performances have been kind of up and down lately, so not really sure what to expect there. Lex, the in-game leader, he's actually been performing pretty good lately for his role, and compared to his history in CSGO, he's actually looked a bit better. And who am I forgetting? Oh, yeah, picked up XP3. That was a good pickup, I think. I think XP3's been opping pretty well for them lately in online play. But now they're going to go up against a pretty big test with Liquid, mouz, and Renegades. And I think Mythic is the oddball out here. I don't see them getting out. They play mousesports first, and I think mouz will beat them there, in which case I'll have to play the loser of Renegades and Liquid to have a chance to come back. And I think no matter who they face, again, I don't see them coming out. Maybe they could beat Renegades to go to like a decider match in the lower bracket, but I think Liquid would best them if they do in fact lose to mouz in the upper bracket final, or if mouz loses to Liquid in the upper bracket final somehow, then I think mouz would take care of Mythic again in a rematch if in fact Mythic can make it past a Renegades or something, or maybe even a Liquid if Renegades beats Liquid off the bat. Regardless, I can't see this Mythic team making it out the group. I think they've improved over time online in North America in the last few weeks, but I just don't think it's enough to come out of this. But it'll be really interesting to see who actually gets out between Liquid, mouz, and Renegades. I think all 3 of those teams have a chance, but there's only 2 spots to come out, and I'm not 100% sure who I think it is. I think mousesports is definitely making it out one way or the other, but it's going to be between Renegades and Liquid to see who gets that second spot out. I'm going to pick Liquid for now. They've looked really good. I'm going to put my chips in on them. They've looked the best they've ever looked, to be honest, since they got the Liquid sponsorship with this particular 5 at this particular moment. And so if they can't make it out this time, if they can't do something on LAN with the way they're playing now at the 5 they have now, I don't know if it'll ever happen, to be honest. So I think this has to be their moment. This has to be them taking the opportunity here, and we'll see if they can do it. Now, last up, we're going to have Group D, which kicking off things will be CLG in this group. Of course, at Cologne, they had a bunch of 16-14 losses and wins, basically. Although the loss to Nip was 13-16 on Dust 2, my mistake. Then they beat eBettle 16-14, and they lost to Navi 14-16 on Cobble. So really, really close games. They almost made it to the quarterfinal. They almost upset Navi. They had a bunch of close games at Gamescom too against SKTSM and Envy on some different maps. They bested Luminosity twice at Win Outland to win that event in the upper bracket final and the grand final. I mean, they actually smashed Luminosity on 4 different maps. Cobble twice, Cash once, Overpass once. Just huge wins. So they did have some huge losses on Train and Mirage as well in the mix there. After the Win Outland, they did lose to Liquid and PGL, as well as losing to Liquid at iBot Power Invitational. We already talked about that. But I think that's more of a sign of Liquid coming up rather than CLG falling off. So I don't think there's room to panic about, CLG losing to Liquid. The only disappointing series that CLG has really played was, I guess, against Conquest for the 3rd place in the iBot Power Invitational, where they lost there. I think they lost the series 1-2. It was a pretty close series, though. But again, that's the only disappointing result they've really had lately. I think they're still the same team that you saw at Gamescom in Cologne, which means they still should be able to make it out of this Group D and move on to the major, as really their only main competition, I feel like, is going to be Flipside Tactics. I don't really see anybody else in this group giving them a whole lot of trouble. The other 2 teams are CSGO Lounge and Copenhagen Wolves, which CSGO Lounge is a pretty decent Polish team. But I mean, I'm not even going to try to judge them because I don't really know much about them. Then this Copenhagen Wolves team, which a lot of people are kind of hyping up a little bit. To be honest, the only real result Copenhagen Wolves has had with this current 5 is their win against Penta Esports to make it to this offline qualifier. So other than that, it's a big mystery to me what Copenhagen Wolves can actually do. And again, I'm not too savvy when it comes to knowledge about the CSGO Lounge team that used to be Dobry, but then got sponsored by CSGO Lounge, I guess. Don't know a whole lot about them. But I think no matter what, CLG should make it out of Group D is really the point. I think Flipside Tactics is probably the next team that should make it out, but maybe this CSGO Lounge team can give Flipside Tactics a fight or upset CLG. I don't know. I would suspect, though, that it'll be CLG and Flipside Tactics coming out of Group D, as I think the initial matchups are CLG taking on... CLG takes on CSGO Lounge first, and Flipside takes on Copenhagen Wolves. I think CLG and Flipside should make it to the bracket final, and whoever wins that will move on, obviously, and then whoever loses would step down and plays, the Copenhagen Wolves or CSGO Lounge. I think no matter what, the loser of CLG Flipside in the upper bracket would win that game and move on. So that's my group predictions. Cloud9 and Dignitas out Group A, Hellraisers and Titan out of Group B, Liquid and Mouse Sports out of Group C, and then CLG and Flipside out of Group D. I don't really know the particular order who will win the upper bracket finals or whatever out of each group. I would think Cloud9 comes out of Group A first. I would think Titan comes out of Group B first. I would think that Mouse Sports comes out of Group C first. And I would think that CLG comes out of Group D first. Though with Simple stepping in for never mind. I got that wrong. That was Hellraisers. With Flipside, I guess there's a chance Flipside could actually beat CLG first in Group D and come out first. And I think even Liquid, if they can actually bring it to land, they could even maybe upset a team to come out of Group C first. But regardless, those are my 8 teams that are going to make it to the major. I've talked a little bit about the North American teams in particular on kind of their recent struggles and recent high points as well, even though there wasn't too much to say about CLG because I think they're pretty much just the same team that I discussed in earlier vlogs when we were talking about Cologne and things of that nature. I don't think they've really changed very much. They still have the tools in place with Cutler calling and Tarek being an impact rifle and JDM doing pretty well with the op lately. Even Hayes stepping up into an entry fragger role since Finesse came in as a lurker now since he's not in-game leading. Hayes has gone back to entering. He's looked good in that position lately. He's put up some good numbers in recent times. Obviously, you expect Tarek and JDM again to do well. And Cutler doesn't seem to let the in-game leading take too much away from his fragging. Plus, the shot calling looks better. The reads look better. Their mid-round transitions look better. Everything in general just looks better for CLG since they kind of made these role swaps with Cutler leading the team. And so, yeah, they haven't changed too much. They should advance from Group D. But, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoy. Make sure you follow and subscribe for more content. And what do you know? I still failed to make a vlog under 30 minutes, so I guess better luck next time.